Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new edition of KerVAM, a Doctor Who podcast where we most of the time talk about all things Doctor Who Blu-rays and DVDs. Today, we're kind of pivoting a little bit, I suppose, as we wanted to celebrate the 50th anniversary-ish of the Fourth Doctor, of Tom Baker, because technically 24th of December last year, something like that, 28th of December last year was the 50th anniversary of the first episode of Robot, which was the Fourth Doctor's first episode. 50 years ago right now, of course, I think it would probably be Genesis of the Daleks that would be airing, or at least the end of the Ark in Space. So it feels like a good time to just take an hour out of your day and just think back to those heady days of the mid to late 1970s where Tom Baker was the Doctor and it felt like everything was rosy in the world of Doctor Who, even if it maybe doesn't feel like that right now. So we're just going to very briefly discuss the current era of Doctor Who, and then we'll get into lots of Tom Baker bliss. Charlie, I don't want to get into a doom-mongering Doctor Who's going to get cancelled kind of moment, so we'll kind of skate over that a little bit, but we did see a leaked release date of the 12th of April, which isn't very, very far away at all. I feel like it's been a month or two since we last spoke. Are you feeling any more positive vibes about the season, knowing that it's only probably 6-7 weeks away now?
I quite simply, I'm not thinking too much about it. It's kind of, I feel like, as much as I liked the middle 5 episodes of season 1, it just, I mean, Joy to the World was all right, like we said. It was okay. But like the ending of season 1 just did not leave a great taste in the mouth. So I wouldn't say I'm like extremely excited and hyped, but obviously I will be watching it as it's broadcast, like you two both will. And obviously I never want something to be bad. You know, even watching each new episode of Flux 4 years ago, I was still hoping that the next one would be good. I like to think that season 2 will be better. But obviously it was written and even filmed after season 1, before season 1 came out. So any sort of complaints people had, like they did with season 1, won't be taken into account for season 2. This was just kind of written and filmed with it.
Yeah.
So I'm a tiny bit nervous about that because I don't want another Empire of Death situation.
Yeah.
I hope it will be good though, and hopefully we get another boom, another 73 yards, another dot and bubble, because the middle of season 1 was good. But yeah, let's not go into the fact that obviously there's all the rumors about Shooty leaving, and it's not looking amazing to be honest. But I'd rather, if things are happening, I'd rather they just sort of tell us, I just want like a statement or something from Russell about the situation, because it's kind of just loads of rumors and nothing concrete. But it doesn't matter though, because we have at least 8 more episodes.
and 5 episodes of a spin-off.
That's true, exactly. Yeah.
Technically 14 episodes still to go.
Exactly. That's great.
So loads of it.
Yeah. But on the whole, it'll be nice to see some more episodes, and we'll be able to talk about all however many. It'll be great.
Yeah. And Ryan, are you feeling the vibes for season 2? Or has the era, are you done with this era already?
I wish I can get more excited. I really wish I could, but honestly, I haven't felt jazzed about it. I mean, when I heard about the date of 12th of April, I was just like, okay, it's that, at least I know when it's coming back, I suppose. But honestly, I mean, even though I didn't despise Empire of Death, I think it was just that 10 minutes of that resolution of how they defeat Sutek and explanation of Ruby's will and everything. That 10 minutes was the only really truly awful bit about it. The rest of it was all right, but just that 10 minutes sounded. But even then, I can't feel excited. I want to get excited. I want to feel as jazzed. And honestly, I feel like the last time I was really jazzed about it was Capaldi's run. Honestly, that was the last time I sort of really felt like, oh my god, this is it. I'm really excited for this. And even when there was that hiatus in 2016, I was still excited, but I don't know. It's really just leaving me feeling a little bit like I mean, I'm not. I'm starting to feel. I hate to say this, but I'm starting to get that feeling that is the ultimate franchise killer. That feeling of apathy, almost. I mean, I've had it with. I'm only starting to recently have it with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm getting that now with Doctor Who as well. And I never thought I'd hear myself say, even though there has been some good stuff, like I said, Shooty's first season, those middle three episodes of Boom, 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble, phenomenal, absolutely amazing stuff. But everything, I just can't get that hyped about. Even then, I wasn't completely overly hyped about even the 60th anniversary or Shooty's first season. And I'm just wondering, is this the end of an era of me being a passionate fan of Doctor Who? Is it just going to be classic Who and some of modern Who, but especially Peter Capaldi's run? Or I don't know, are we ever going to get that magic again? And I think I mentioned this last time, but maybe it should take a bit of a break. Maybe it should take a little bit of a hiatus. Not as long as the last one was, definitely not, but something about 5 years, something like that, for it to go away and have a completely new creative team come in and a completely different team and give it that brand new, fresh blood innovation that I think the show desperately needs. Because even with Russell back at the helm, it's still not there. I'm just missing that bold, fresh excitement that I got, especially during Capaldi's run. I feel like it needs that innovation back again.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It feels like as a fan, we're kind of going through an existential crisis moment of, do we really love the show anymore? Is the show really good anymore? I feel like it was easier during the Jodie Whittaker / Chris Chibnall era to kind of say, well, it's just the writing, it's just not working. Whereas you get Russell back, and you have David Tennant for the first 3 episodes, then you have Ncuti as a really good Doctor, but yet it still feels like something's just not quite clicking, and you can't quite put your finger on exactly what it is, but the show just doesn't feel that good. I think it's such a hard place to be, you often sort of, I find, start thinking you think it's just like the negative minority, I suppose, but I feel like, at least what I see online from the majority of people, feel the same way we do, of feeling just generally kind of that apathy, as you say, Ryan, about the show. It's not even that we hate it, it's just that we're not really excited about it in the same way. And I think that's a real shame, and I don't really know what the answer to that is. I sort of feel like, at the very least, I think if you're not going to get a break, the next thing needs to be a new approach, in the sense of a showrunner that isn't just a massive Doctor Who fan and been watching it since a kid, someone who's just going to come and write a good story rather than write in continuity references. Because as much as we sort of thought that Russell coming back was going to be a great thing or whatever, I don't see how you can say that putting Sutek in the finale of your first season is a good thing to try and relaunch the show. Like, having Space Babies as your first episode and having Sutek in the finale, sure, I enjoyed Sutek in the finale because I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, but most of the audience don't know who that is and don't care. And I just don't think that's the right approach for what the show needs nowadays. And that's why we need someone who is not just going to come and bring in all the old monsters. Then you do something new.
Yeah, it feels like a different sort of thing. It's about, like, with Church of Ruby Road and Space Babies, it was clearly meant for children. And then you have stuff like Devil's Cord and Rogue that was sort of meant to be more of a broader thing, broader audience, like all ages. And then you have that trilogy of Boom, 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble that were clearly meant for the more older fans that want more sort of mature Doctor Who. And then you have the finale that was clearly meant to be with Sutek, that was clearly meant to be for classic Who fans only. Clearly, it was meant to be. It just feels like a bit of a mishmash, I suppose. And I said maybe it does need that sort of more innovation put into it. Like, this is going to be a bit of a brief tangent, but like the DC films, like when they did from 2013 to 2023, the original series of DC Comics films, I hated some of their outputs. There were some of those films I just absolutely hated, but I was still invested in it because I was hoping that the next one was going to be right. And sometimes that did happen. Sometimes we would get a good film, and yet sometimes we would get an awful film. I still cared about it. And of course, now they're starting over again, new innovation, as we will see in July with Superman. And I'm really jazzed and excited about that. Obviously, I still care about that, but I feel like what we're going now, happening now with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now with Doctor Who, I'm just getting that feeling of ennui about it, just that feeling of apathy. Like I just feel like I'm starting to not as love it or as passionate or care about it as I once did, and it makes me sad, man. It just makes me sad.
I think it's interesting as well, because I kind of agree. I think I watched this video on YouTube a couple of months ago about how Doctor Who simply doesn't work in the 2020s, because the thing is, it started in obviously the 60s, back when it came on at 5 o'clock when all the family was sat at the sofa eating dinner, watching the TV, and there was nothing else on. And it was kind of meant as a variety show designed for everyone. But nowadays, because of all the streaming, then things are sort of targeted very specifically at different groups of people. So a sort of variety show that Doctor Who is, that has some really serious episodes, and it's just sort of like thematically it's all over the place within the same season. It just doesn't really work anymore, because not everyone needs to watch the same thing. I feel like they sort of tried to remedy this in the 2000s by having Torchwood as the more adult one and Sarah Jane Adventures as the more children's one, and it kind of worked. But I feel like Doctor Who, it seems like a relic in 2025. Like, I feel like if you ask the average person if they're watching the next season of Doctor Who, they'd probably be surprised that it's still going. Like, I feel generally speaking, people don't know that Doctor Who is still going on. They just sort of remember David Tennant, then Matt Smith, then there was another one, and they just...
And then that's probably it. Or they just know there was a woman and it was terrible because they put a woman in it. It's usually the feeling, I think.
Exactly. Like you said, Ryan, a few years off, come back in like 2028, 2029, 2030, something like that, and just do something else, sort of design it more sort of directly towards whoever they're trying to get, Doctor Who fans, ideally. And not do a sort of variety show. Like, none of us really cared for Space Babies. I'm sure some children loved it, but you know what I mean? They need to decide who they're tailoring this for. Are they trying to get in new, younger Doctor Who fans, or are they trying to keep the older ones? Because I feel like trying to do both just doesn't really work. Or even do longer story arcs, because can you name a single like TV show or streaming in 2025 that has a sort of monster of the week sort of theme to it? Because you had Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the 2000s that was very much like that, you know, the 2000s of Doctor Who. But Doctor Who is still like that, and it's just a new random sci-fi villain per week. Like, even the Star Wars shows don't do that, and it's just one story across like 8 hours or something. But I just think it's interesting. Maybe it just needs a few years off and to come back and be a bit more serialized, maybe, which is interesting, because obviously the episodic, it was originally serialized and then they modernized it by making it episodic, but maybe they need to go back to that kind of one overarching story. But I think Chris Chibnall was he had the right idea with Flux in doing a story arc. It's just a shame that it was Chris Chibnall who had that idea, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Ditto.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've felt for a long time that serialization is the way Doctor Who needs to go, and it's kind of, they've got to accept that Doctor Who isn't unique in terms of being able to survive as its own thing, and actually it does need to change a little bit with the TV streaming landscape that we're in 2025. And as you say, serialization is a part of that. It happened. They've done it before. They did it in this. You know, it was done for the whole of the classic series. It was basically 4, 6, 8, 10 episode stories. I just don't get why you wouldn't try and do that. Obviously, they did it with Flux, and I think that was a good thing. But I do feel like if a season 3 does get commissioned, they should just make it Doctor Who something, or, you know, make it a title, a whole the whole series is one big story, kind of like the War Between the Land and the Sea is going to be. I think that's just, especially for streaming, is the way you just have to make TV now.
Yeah, or maybe just do what they did with Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi's second seasons. They tried to be more ambitious by having more detailed story arcs embedded, and like with Matt Smith's second season, they were trying to do a more ambitious overall bold story arc throughout the season for most of it. And yes, didn't completely work. Let's Go Hitler and Wedding a River Song were both not great. But Moffat clearly had the right idea. It's clear that he wanted to gear towards back to that. And with Capaldi's second season, Series 9, which is probably still my favourite season of Modern Who, they tried to bring back like multi-parters into it while doing experimental ones like a duology, the Ishilda duology, and then the finale trilogy, like these more ambitious things. And maybe they should gear more back towards doing that, like 2 or 3 parters, while all being connected as into one arc. Maybe they should just do that, really, because Moffat had the right idea back then, and even Chibnall to some extent with Flux. But again, just a shame Chibnall wrote Flux and just tried, and it was this hodgepodge.
Yeah, that's it. I think ultimately it's season 1 that we've just had was basically Russell redoing 2005 again, rather than saying let's do something new. It's just 2005, but with 8 episodes rather than 13. And that's just not the right decision. And so I think something has to and obviously it's going to be the same for season 2, but that's got to fundamentally change, I think, for the future, for the show to really grow and develop from here.
I really hope The War Between the Land and the Sea is actually really good.
I agree.
I feel like if it's really well received and better than season 1 and maybe 2, Russell will kind of realise, oh, people actually like this serialized format. And hopefully he just applies it to seasons 3 and beyond, because I'm not like, I know we were talking about apathy and how we don't care too much for season 2. I feel that even more strongly for The War Between the Land and the Sea. Like, I will watch it and I'm hoping it's good, but I'm not excited for it at all. But at the same time, I really hope that it's really good and people actually love it, because if that's the case, and if season 3 happens, Russell will sort of click and think, oh, people love this and let's do more of it. And I think that would be the way forward if they don't have a few years off and Russell just comes back with season 3 in probably 2027 and maybe with the 16th Doctor.
Indeed, yeah. Well, we will see what the future holds for Doctor Who in the years to come. But it feels all a little bit 1986 right now. So let's take it back to 1974, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 80, 81. And the Tom Baker era, the 4th Doctor's era. It feels like such a nostalgic era. For me, obviously, I'm not that old. I was not around when it was on the first time round. But it feels like, for me, the whole 70s is such a nostalgic era of Doctor Who. And obviously, I think it's fair to say that Tom Baker was probably the most popular Doctor of the classic series, certainly. I think, that sort of casual fan that we've been talking about, of a certain age at least, would be able to kind of say, oh, that there was that Doctor with the long scarf and the hat. Like, people remember that almost over anything else, along with David Tennant. And I think that really is a sign of how enduring he's been for now 50 years, which is absolutely crazy. So it felt like, a good time to just take stock a little bit, just to travel back in time and remind ourselves of how great Tom Baker is and how great that era was as well. So Charlie, I'll come to you first. Can you remember the first 4th Doctor story that you saw? And if so, what your sort of first impressions of Tom Baker were? Like, did you have them before you saw him in the show? Did you know that he was really popular? Like, how was that journey begin for you?
So the first time I saw Tom Baker as the Doctor, he wasn't playing the 4th Doctor. It was the curator in Day of the Doctor.
Of course.
I had a general knowledge of just kind of, oh yeah, Tom Baker was the guy who was the Doctor for 7 years. I didn't really think anything else of him. I was just like, yeah, he was the guy. He was sort of my idea of classic Who. If I imagined classic Who, it would be him. And I watched all of New Who, including Day of the Doctor. He was there. I didn't really understand the sort of wow, this is the 4th Doctor. I didn't really understand all that, because I just wanted to see the 10th and 11th Doctors meet, which I did, and it was great. But that wasn't really the highlight of the episode for me now. But if I rewatch Day of the Doctor, I think this is brilliant. It's Tom Baker coming back. And part of me still wishes he did for Power of the Doctor. But I mean, with all the fan service we get in Power of the Doctor, we can't really complain. Because like there were like 8 doctors in the whole episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then after watching New Who, I went and I ordered the DVDs of the Time Warrior and Genesis of the Daleks.
Okay.
Quite randomly, because I heard they were both really good. And Genesis of the Daleks, if you guys remember, had that sticker on the front, the red sticker that said #1 rated Doctor Who episode.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
I don't know if it still is, because they redo the polls every few years, but
Yeah, I'm
I
not
think
sure actually. Which is
it's
the
either
top.
that or Caves of Androzani.
Yeah, I think so.
It must be
One of those. Yeah.
But yeah, I watched both of them. I watched the Time Warrior first. That was my first Classic Who story, and it was great. And then Genesis, and yeah, it was amazing. And then for some reason, I didn't watch any Classic Who for like the next 3 years. I just kind of sat with those two, and
Mhm.
but obviously that was a very, very good first impression of the Fourth Doctor, because if I'd watched like The Creature from the Pit first, I would not have seen any more Classic Who, and I would not be on this podcast today.
Yeah.
So
Of
I'm very
course.
glad it was Genesis of the Daleks. It was strange watching it as 6 25-minute episodes. Basically the length of like a New Who 3-parter.
Pretty much.
But with like a 20th of the budget of the episodes I've just been watching, which was series 10. It was really, really jarring to watch. But yeah, I could tell, I understood why everyone loved Tom Baker so much. And it was pretty amazing. It was Genesis of the Daleks. And obviously now having seen his entire era, it's understandable why he's so loved. He's not my #1 favorite. It kind of goes Pertwee, Capaldi, Troughton, then him.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's 4th out of 15, kind of 17. It depends how which one you count. But
yes. Yeah.
He's up there. And towards the top, it's kind of just like my favorite character of all time is the Doctor. Like at the end of the day, while they do regenerate and everyone prefers some over others, they're the same character. It's the Doctor. And I think Tom Baker captured the essence of the Doctor really well. I think in the same way Capaldi did, especially. It's kind of obvious he was. I mean, it's kind of unfair to Troughton to say that he was the inspiration for kind of the rest of the Doctors. But I feel like Troughton and Tom Baker both sort of laid the foundations for like the rest of the Doctors, really. If you look at Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, Sylvester McCoy, even Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, all of them really, they all seem to take inspiration from 2 and 4, and some of them others, of course. But I feel like it's very obvious he's the most influential and was the most well-known Doctor until like 2006.
Yeah, exactly.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. No, I absolutely agree with you. And Ryan, you told me before that Tom Baker is probably your joint favourite Doctor. So, what is it about like his portrayal of the character? We've heard Charlie say like the Doctor is just the best character, and I absolutely agree. I think the idea of the Doctor is just such a great idea for a character in a show. What do you think it is about Tom's portrayal specifically that you really like and you think really works to kind of elevate his Doctor? I know it's not an easy question.
Well, to kind of answer that, you have to understand when I started Doctor Who, he was kind of like my gateway into Doctor Who, basically. I started getting into Doctor Who as the new series was kind of started, but I never actually watched them. I knew Modern Who was started, but I didn't really get into it. But then my parents got me 2 DVDs, classic Doctor Who's for Christmas, and they were Ark in Space and Genesis of the Daleks. They were the very first ones for me. They were sort of my gateway into it. And I watched them. I first started off with Ark in Space, and I was absolutely captivated. And I think Rusty Davis and Stephen Moffat said that they think it's the best Doctor Who story ever, Ark in Space. And I can actually now understand why, because that story is actually Doctor Who in its most purest form. You can actually start from Ark in Space, not knowing anything about Doctor Who whatsoever, like I did, and you get it immediately. And it's everything you want to see in a Doctor story. It's there, the perfect blend of sci-fi and horror, a tense situation, memorable supporting characters, and just memorable monsters and the Doctor and the companions on top form. It's just perfect. And when I watched Ark in Space, that my first Doctor Who story, I was just captivated just how Tom approached it. He seemed to have that perfect blend of being, he has that unpredictable blend of being 1 minute being all like fascinated and boggle-eyed and just excited about everything, and especially when he's talking with Sarah Jane or Harry, and Harry's offering these theories, and the Doctor's like, "You're improving, Harry. Yes, it's your mind. It's actually beginning to work." And some of his one-liners as well. So remember, they say, "Although that's turning down to my influence, of course, you wouldn't take all the credit now." And then just it's just some of these one-liners just instant, and then instantly being serious the next. Like he can, people forget that in his early stories during the golden age of Doctor Who, he can be quite serious at times as well as being humorous. I mean, when he's serious about a situation, you can tell he's really serious. Like that, it's really selling the threat of the Wirral, and him when he discovers the fate of humanity, and then in their cryopods, and then him in doing his speech about aggrandizing about humanity's survival throughout the ages and being like, Homo sapiens, they're indomitable and all that. It was just seeing how he transitions it from scene to scene, that alien quality, but yet somehow, as alien as he is, you can instantly connect with him because of his unpredictability, how he maneuvers each scene, and how dangerous he can be at times. That, in a way, he had that, and I hate to use this expression, he had a bit of an X factor about him, something that you can't quite put your finger on, but yet it was something very special and unique, and that's what instantly drew my attention to him in the Ark in Space. And obviously that continued on into Genesis of the Daleks, which I'll watch next, and obviously it is an all-time classic. We discussed many times here how Genesis of the Daleks is such a fascinating story, memorable themes, brilliant villain in Davros, who is still my favourite Doctor Who enemy of all time to this very day. Just seeing how Tom Baker was pitted against Davros, and seeing, I always say, like, if the Master is the dark reflection of the Doctor, Davros is the complete opposite of him. And Genesis of the Daleks instantly sells that, and just seeing the Doctor wrestling with the situation that's going on, and just meeting his match with Davros, and the scenes they have together is just instantly electric. And of course, there's the memorable moments about whether he's like, touch these two strands together and the Daleks are finished, and just said, do I have the right, and all, and him wrestling, grasping with the situation, and yet, as much as he can be very deadly serious in that story, really bringing the weight of the situation about the creation of the Daleks and the war between the Thals and the Khalids, he still has he has time to be memorably witty and funny in it, and he doesn't feel jarring or out of place. It somehow feels a bit natural, even as grim as the situation is. He still manages to pull out a witty one-liner when Harry's like, well, we have to cross through the wastelands again, and the Doctor's like, yes, and that's when our troubles really begin. And just really excited about it. And I think it was that moment that when he said that that's when our troubles really begin, that was the point where I'm just like, nobody's going to match him. Nobody's going to match him. I'm going to watch all the other Doctors, and I'm sure I'm going to love them, but nothing's going to match Tom Baker. I was a bit wrong because we got Peter Capaldi, and he did equally match him, but even I was just like, no, the Doctor's going to take the top spot for me. It's always going to be Tom. And then from there, I started getting more into. I watched Modern Who. I watched Classic Who. I was watching, and I ended up watching a lot of Classic Who out of order because that's how it was with the classic DVDs at the time. And then around the 50th anniversary, after having one of the best days of my life of going to the Excel 50th anniversary celebration, then going to the cinema afterwards to watch Day of the Doctor. And of course, when Tom Baker showed up at the end, I did tear up a little bit just seeing Tom Baker come back. I was like, it was just such a memorable moment of seeing the actor who's the current Doctor, Matt Smith, meeting Tom Baker, who is the Doctor. And I was just like, wow, one moment. And after that, I started with like, okay, I need to buy all the classic Doctor Who DVDs. And I ordered all the ones I was missing. And
wow.
And that's when beginning of 2014, I did my Doctor Who marathon all the way up until Capaldi's first episode, watching every single one, even the ones I haven't watched. It was all thanks to Tom Baker and just that special, unique quality that he brought to it. Just his passion, his drive, his energy. It what made me the Doctor Who fan I am today. And I just owe it all to him. And those two stories, Ark in Space and Genesis of the Daleks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. And I think I've had a sort of really interesting journey because I feel like I sort of, over my time of watching Classic Who in the last, I don't know, probably 20, nearly 20 years since I started watching Classic Who, like, I wouldn't have generally put Tom Baker right at the top of my list. I always really like the John Pertwee in the John Pertwee era. I enjoyed Patrick Troughton, obviously like the new series, Chris Eccleston, Peter Capaldi, and it felt like sort of when I would just kind of think about it, not when I'm watching episodes, I'd think, oh yeah, Tom, I like Tom, but he's not at the top. He's just kind of quite good, isn't he? He's a pretty decent Doctor. But then I feel like every time, certainly more recently, the last couple of years or so, I don't know, every time I watch an episode with him as the Doctor, even if it's like not a very good one, like Revenge of the Cybermen or something, I quite like Revenge of the Cybermen, but I know people think it's not very good. I just really like his Doctor. He's just so much fun, and he really draws you in. And as you say, Ryan, some of the the quipping with the companions and stuff is really, really good. Like it's almost like he's the kind of quintessential Doctor. Like what you imagine the character of the Doctor to be is kind of Tom Baker. I feel like, more than anything, in terms of that being like the smartest person in the room all of the time, but being a joker half the time, cracking jokes, being deadly serious when he needs to be, and kind of jumping between those two moods constantly. Like, I feel like, it's what we sort of, in our heads, almost without realising, can think of the Doctor as a character being. It's basically the portrayal that Tom Baker did. Maybe, to an extent, what Patrick Troughton did as well. I think that's probably the other most setting out what the character is, because as much as I love John Pertwee, I don't think you'd say that John Pertwee is the most stereotypical Doctor. He's that bit more serious and just taking it a bit more seriously than some of the others, whereas someone like Tom or Sylvester or David or Matt or whoever, I feel like they're all more just what you imagine the Doctor to be, and Tom is the original what you imagine the Doctor to be. And so he always just draws you in, even when you don't always think he's the best. It's really interesting.
Yeah, Tom Baker's image as the Doctor has become synonymous as that with the police box and the Daleks. It's so unbelievable. And I will say, I've said that Tom and Peter Capaldi are like my joint favourites. Very closely behind, if Tom Baker and Capaldi are like my number one, very close behind Troughton, Pertwee, and William Hartnell. Those will be top four. And I will say those 5 actors who played the Doctor, they're my gold standard. I will say those 5 are like the quintessential Doctors. And even though Tom Baker and Peter Capaldi are my number ones, those other 3, the Doctors 1 to 3, they're very close behind, and they're to me who I see of as the Doctor. They're just and no disrespect to any of the ones that come after or in between, but for me it's just those 5, and I think it's very evident that those first 4 Doctors of Hartnell to Tom, they were the ones that had the biggest impact on Peter Capaldi, because he grew up watching those Doctors, and I can definitely see elements of those first 4 Doctors in his 12th Doctor. I can see elements of each one of those 4, especially Pertwee and Baker.
Absolutely.
I think to prevent this becoming just a how amazing is Peter Capaldi episode, I think I was thinking about this the other day in sort of thinking about Tom Baker's era for this episode. He's kind of, I feel like Tom Baker works in every single Doctor Who episode. If you just picked a random one and put Tom Baker in it, he wouldn't necessarily make it better, or but I don't think he'd make it worse. I think he works in every single Doctor Who episode, maybe except Heaven Sent, but that's Peter Capaldi's episode. It's not really a Doctor Who episode, in the sense that it's just him. But I feel like there's some Doctors where it's like John Pertwee is my favorite, but I don't think he would work in. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. It's kind of hard to think of one. I think, you know what I mean? I think some episodes would be worse if a different Doctor was in them, but I don't think Tom Baker being in a Doctor Who episode instead of someone else would ever make it worse. I think, like you said, he's the quintessential Doctor. He is the Doctor. You know, if you showed like 8-year-old me before I started watching Doctor Who a picture of Tom Baker, having never seen an episode of Doctor Who, I would just say, yeah, he's from Doctor Who, isn't he? I just know, because he's the main Doctor. I mean, David Tennant has been the main Doctor for my lifetime. I knew that David Tennant was the Doctor more than Tom Baker growing up, but that's different. Tom Baker is kind of the original one, because obviously until 2000 and even like 2008, really, not necessarily 6, but until like 2008, 2009, Tom Baker was obviously the main Doctor for the last 30 years. And he still kind of is, really. Obviously, I think he has more episodes than, like, it's not quite New Who anymore. But I remember a few years ago, it was still Tom Baker has more episodes than New Who. But I don't think that's the case. He's not as much of an outlier. I think William Hartnell's actually second because of the amount of episodes he had per season. But he has more episodes than like 9, 10, 11, 12 combined. Which I think is crazy. Obviously, Classic Who had 700. And New Who's got, like, I think I worked it out, it's like 189.
Something like that, yeah. And I think Tom's got about 175, 180, something about there.
Yeah.
I mean, he had like 25 per season, so 175.
7 seasons, up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think altogether, including Sharda, he has 42 stories, and when considered the length of each one, it's like having done 42 feature films, basically.
Absolutely. We're so lucky, aren't we?
Like the amount of time, the amount of footage he actually has with Doctor Who is. I'd be interested to see like the most amount of time someone spent on screen playing the same character, because I bet Tom Baker must be up there.
Yeah, you would have thought so. I mean, there's probably the odd character from EastEnders who's been in it for like 30 years or something. It's probably one of the few ones that would beat that. But yeah, I think fundamentally his screen time must be pretty major compared to most things. Well, interesting, Charlie, you touched on there like stories where Tom Baker could slot into virtually any Doctor Who story and it would still be good. So that also got me thinking off the back of that, thinking about Tom Baker's era. As much as a lot of it is great, there's also quite a few stories that are not very good. So, can you pick out any stories where you feel like Tom is kind of like the best thing about it, or is like saving the story a little bit from the plot being bad or having no budget? You know, I don't know, stories that are considered to be bad, like Underworld and the Invasion of Time or whatever. Like, is Tom carrying stories like that, do we think?
The Invasion of Time. I don't actually hate the Invasion of Time.
No, I
think
it,
it's all right.
People do.
I think it's like a 6 out of 10. I think it's fine. I don't like the last 2 episodes where they're running around the TARDIS. And it just loses itself. But I think the first few episodes are great, and I think Tom just absolutely carries those episodes with his performance. And we're just confused. We're put in Leela's position, and it's like, what's the Doctor doing? Why is he evil? It's absolutely crazy, and we don't understand either. And I think, like, watching it, I was just like, I know why people think this is bad, but you just can't hate it, I don't think, because Tom Baker is just that good in it. I'm tempted to say things like Underworld and The Creature from the Pit, but I mean, I don't want to say Tom can't even save them, but they're awful. They're just really bad. Like, you could put literally any single Doctor in those stories and it would just be bad. It's like, I don't think Tom could save Flux.
No,
like,
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I
Yeah,
feel
fair
like the
enough.
Invasion of Time springs to mind as one where Tom is absolutely carrying it, and
Hmm.
I think if there hadn't been as good a performance as the Doctor, it wouldn't be nearly as good.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And Ryan, do we think there's there moments in particularly the sort of mid to late part, I suppose, of Tom Baker's era? I'm sort of thinking season 16, season 17 time, where I know the sort of producers and directors sometimes talked about him getting a little bit out of control in terms of like him just deciding what he wants to do with the show, basically deciding what he likes, what he doesn't like, and being quite difficult to work with. Do do you think that has a significant impact on screen? Obviously, we know that, like, him and Louise Jameson didn't get on very well, and there were difficulties with some directors and things. But do you think the actual episodes we see on TV are worse off for it, or actually having the Doctor almost being a little bit kind of gradually more and more a bit quirky and weird and like doing random to camera moments and whatever? Like, I don't know. Do you think that was for the better or for the worse of the show on screen?
I think it kind of depends, really. I mean, it's weird because, I mean, nothing against some of these. I mean, some of the turns towards the camera can work. I mean,
Yeah,
that very quick one he did in the Pirate Planet when
yeah.
K9 just does that very quick sum, and the Doctor's like, "Why got 3.72?" And then he turns the camera and goes, "That's what I thought." And
Yeah.
that very quick one that just instantly springs to mind. That's one of my favourite modes, and sometimes it can work really well. But there are other times, like in the Face of Evil, then when he seems like he's trying to do one towards character, it just feels a little bit
Mm-hmm.
awkward. Like, I don't know if it was him or the director. I don't know. I think it just kind of really depends. Like, sometimes it can work, sometimes it can come across as perhaps a little bit flat. And with
Mm-hmm.
how it's difficult, because with these, I think perhaps the reason it, I mean, it is a bit. It's not very good to hear like how he was getting more and more proprietorial about the part, and
Yeah.
but I think hearing some of his early life, like how where he came from, but how he wanted to be a hero, like he wanted to do something special that would make his mother proud, and him wanting, and him when he used to be a monk at the age of 15 and being told by teachers and priests that he was nothing, and then losing his faith in God, and then deciding that he was dropping out, and then eventually involved in drama school, and then becoming the Doctor, and then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly getting tens of millions of viewers,
Mm-hmm.
children loving him, even though, and one memorable quote he said, it wasn't acting, it was just him being Tom, and seeing everyone
Yeah.
loving him. And when you have all that, you can kind of sort of understand why he was like that. I think it was because I think he just really cared. He was passionate. I mean, one could argue that maybe he cared too much, or maybe he was
Mm-hmm.
over passionate about it. But hearing everything where he came from and how his journey to get involved in Doctor Who and the success he had initially with the Golden Age, can't overly blame him. Honestly, I mean, after
Yeah.
living the life, after being told you were nothing as a teenager, then um, being a penniless nobody trying to make ends meet on a building site, and then instantly becoming a national hero. I can't. If I was in his position, maybe I would have ended up in the same way. I don't know. It's really hard, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard because on the one hand, it's not. I mean, he even. But then again, I think he would admit that he was too proprietorial. Even he would admit that maybe
Yeah.
he thinks. I mean, reading some extracts from his autobiography, he
Mm.
even said at one point, he said, "After 7 years, I come to think of it as my show. How silly I was," and
Yeah.
he realised it was time to go, really,
Mm.
and he had four showrunners basically. He had
Yeah.
Barry Letts and Terence Dicks for his first story, and they were the ones who helped cast him. And then he had Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes from Ark in Space to Talons of Weng Chiang.
Yeah.
And I think you can see that was where he was probably the most comfortable. Maybe that's where their vision sort of aligned, basically, because I think they were kind of like the new kids on the block, basically, Tom Baker and Philip Hinchcliffe. But I think then I think after Philip Hinchcliffe kind of got pushed aside due to Mary Whitehouse, then Graham Williams and the two script editors he had came in, and I think we discussed this when we were doing season 15, reviewing the box set, the Graham Williams documentary, that Tom Baker would admit that he wished that he was more kinder and gentler towards Graham, and he even says in the book that he got the sense that Graham was getting very tired of him, and Tom said, I was getting tired of myself, and he was and you can also hear, like, as much as he did get very proprietorial, he even said in an interview at the time, I feel like I know more about the program than the writers do. Quite naturally, I do, and he felt like he could have written his part better. He even says that in the book. He felt like he got sense, and then he kind of wishes that he toned it down, but then again, I can sort of understand where he's coming from to a certain extent. It's weird because on the one hand, yes, it's not very good behavior, but on the other hand, I can sort of see perhaps where he's coming from in some regards. It's strange.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's really, he's a complex character in that sense, and I think he's sort of changed his feelings a lot on it in the 50 years since the show aired. I think he's 45 years from the end of his era in terms of his feelings about the show and how he was when filming it and all that kind of stuff. I think that's changed quite a lot. And so, Charlie, do you think that he stayed for too long? Do you think there is another point earlier on where he should have left? Like, was season 18 a season too far, or even after season 16? Do you think that, he's obviously completely unprecedented compared to anybody else in doing 7 seasons. No other Doctor's done more than 3. Even in the modern series, where the series is much shorter, still no one's made over 3. So was 7 too many?
Well, I mean, you say 3. John Pertwee obviously did 5.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about John Pertwee. Good point.
Yeah. But
good shout.
I think it's annoying because season 18 I do not like. I used to hate it a lot more, and then we did the season 17 box set, and then I was like, wow, season 17 is actually really bad. And then I watched season 18 again for a retrospective when they released the standard edition.
Yeah.
And I thought, this isn't that bad. So it kind of made me sort of, I liked season 17 less and season 18 more. And I still don't mind lots of the stories. I think Full Circle's okay. State of Decay.
Yeah.
Warrior's Gate is kind of weird. I know you love it, Elliot. I actually watched it.
I watched it literally last week.
Yeah, I watched it a few weeks ago, and I try to love it, but it's too weird. It's too weird.
It just takes a lot to follow it, doesn't it? I didn't enjoy it as much this time as I did previously. I still like it, but you really have to pay attention, to every line of dialogue, and just try and work out what's going on to really enter into the story. I feel like
Warrior's Gate is a vibe story. It's like, don't try to understand Warrior's Gate, just feel it.
Well, also true.
Yeah, I like the Leisure Hive as well. It's not really talked about very often, but I do. No. I really quite like the Leisure Hive. I think the cliffhanger at the end of episode 1, if you remember, is quite possibly my favorite cliffhanger in Classic Who. I think it's hilarious, where it just zooms in on the Doctor being ripped apart by this machine. I think it's hilarious.
Oh yeah.
But and then I don't hate the season necessarily, but it just really loses me towards the end with the Keeper of Traken, and Logopolis is one of my least favorite Tom Baker stories. I really don't like it. Yeah. It's the Christopher Bidmead stuff, and it's all the scientific nonsense talk. It really loses me towards the end. And I think if that season hadn't existed, it just would have been a lot nicer. or if that season had just been given to Peter Davison, I think it just would have flowed a lot nicer, because I think of Tom Baker's era, I think there's the really good stuff at the start, the amazing run he had for 3 seasons. Then there's the okay 3 seasons that are a bit more weird and crazy, and where Tom Baker just started to break the fourth wall every episode. And then I just sort of think, oh yeah, there's also that season at the end where Tom Baker seems to have aged about 10 years. And it just has such a different feel. And I think it would have been so much nicer if he'd regenerated in Sharda.
Yeah.
Obviously, it'd be very sad that the story didn't even get made, but if they'd filmed the regeneration, it would have been okay. And then we just have Peter Davison take over in the Leisure Hive. But and yeah, I mean, also I guess at the end of season 14, if he did that, just the Troughton rule, it would have been probably the most legendary run for one Doctor. Really.
To be fair, yeah, I agree.
Robot to the Talons of Weng Chiang, there's like one bad story in my opinion, Revenge of the Cybermen, and there's kind of like
no, it's good. It's good. I like
don't
it.
Like it. I don't like it. But I mean, Sontaran Experiment, I don't love either. Season 12 is a little bit rocky, but 13 and 14 are both so ridiculously amazing. It would just be the best run of all time. But if that happened, we would have missed out on City of Death, all of season 16, which I love, and we'll get back to when we discuss our favorite Tom Baker stories, because I really love season 16.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like if he'd left earlier, he wouldn't have had as big an impact, because the reason why he was known for so long as the Doctor, I think it is partially due to his amazing performance. I'm not denying that, but it's because he had nearly 200 episodes and 7 seasons, and there was a time where nearly a half of all Doctor Who was him. So
crazy, isn't it?
It makes sense. I feel like if he'd had 3 seasons, let's say the first 3, he would have been not as remembered as the Doctor, but he definitely would have still been people's favourites. And obviously that run from Robots, Talons of Weng Chiang is just incredible. It's kind of like how Christopher Eccleston is, really. No one thinks of him as the modern Doctor, but everyone loves Series 1. Really. He had a really good run, a very short run, and then he went. And that's that. But yeah, I wouldn't say he overstayed his welcome necessarily, but maybe it would have been more fondly remembered if he'd left a little earlier.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird. I sometimes go back and forth on that. Even he admitted that maybe he stayed a bit too long and that he felt he should have left when Graham Williams did with Sharda. He felt like he should have left at the end of season 17. But even then, I'm just again, just hearing, the fact that he became so popular and, he went to schools as the Doctor, he went to hospitals as the Doctor, he even went around to people's houses as the Doctor to watch an episode and just living the life of a national institution. I can understand it kind of became an appealing drug to him almost. In all that sense, that's probably the reason why he stayed far longer than he should have done, was because people loved him. And I can totally get it. And in regards to some of his later runs, season 15, I'm mixed on. Half of season 15, I absolutely adore. Horror Fang Rock, which I think is Terrence Dix's best episode story, I think, is fantastic. And of course, Image of the Fendal, Sunmakers, the rest I could just ignore, just didn't happen. Season 16, Key to Time, I love the first 4 stories. Can't stand the last 2. They just really bother me, especially Power of Crawl, which might be my least favourite Tom Baker story. Well, either that or Underworld. Season 17, well, City of Death and Sharda were good, but just a shame the rest of it was hilariously awful. And season 18, I have a match. Yes, season 18 does not completely feel like a Tom Baker season, and you can definitely tell at that point his ill-feeling and argumentative nature was clearly bleeding into the role, especially at that point with his last season. But I have a massive soft spot for season 18. The Leisure Hive, as you mentioned, Charlie, it is a really underrated story. It's a lot of fun, surprisingly. When I went into it, I thought, oh, this looks a little bit weird. But honestly, I honestly got into it. Full Circle was good. State of Decay is my favourite story of that season, and has nearly cracked my top 3 favourite Tom Baker stories, actually. State of Decay. I just love the gothic vampire horror story vibes of it. And so, yeah, it was very close in my top 3, but didn't quite make the cut. Warrior's Gate, I have a blast with it. It's the perfect vibe story. Track and I enjoyed. And Logopolis, in a way, I see Logopolis as the classic Doctor Who equivalent of Angels Take Manhattan, in that it's a emotional, tense, worthwhile ending to a beloved character. But plot-wise, it makes absolutely no sense when you stop and think about it for 5 seconds. So, in a way, Logopolis is classic Who's Angels Take Manhattan. But I still have a soft spot for Logopolis, especially the last few moments of it. So, you could make the argument that he perhaps did stay too long, but we had so many good stories since then. Even though his last 4 seasons, it was a bit of a mixed bag, especially during the Williams period. But honestly, even though some of those stories were rough, I know we've constantly mocked, Creature from the Pit, Horns of Nymon, and so forth. They still kind of gave me some good memories, because I watched some of these stories with my late gran, and we had she thinks Tom Baker is her favourite Doctor, and even though, yes, we laughed our heads off at Creature from the Pit and Horns of Nymon, just like, this is so ridiculously stupid, and also it kind of gave us those good memories, even as hilariously awful as they were, definitely. I still kind of can't really hate them because of the good memories it gave me, because I can still think of me gran when I watch those those good memories. And so, I think the only really ones that I'm just like, I cannot deal with this at all, there's nothing hilariously bad about this, I think possibly Revenge of the Cybermen, Underworld, and Power of Kroll, and to some extent Armageddon Factor.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think Underworld and Armageddon Factor are probably the 2 for me. I like Revenge of the Cybermen, but I know a lot of people don't. So I want to kind of start bringing it into land now. I think one other topic I just wanted to cover before we end on our top 3 episodes, we'll go for top 3, was like the sort of Doctor Companion dynamics of this era, because obviously Tom Baker had a lot of companions in Sarah, Harry, kind of the Brigadier, but not really, and then Leela, and then Romana 1, then Romana 2, then Adric, then even Tegan for 1 episode. So do we think that the Doctor and Sarah is an unbeatable combination, or is there any others that you think kind of compete with that in Tom's era? Charlie, what's your take?
I agreed until you said in Tom's era. In Tom's era, no. For Sarah is, I would say, like, it's kind of tied for my top 3 Doctor Companion duos. It's impossible to rank these top 3. It's 2 and Jamie, 9 and Rose, and 4 and Sarah. They're just they're all amazing. But yeah, 4 and Sarah is easily the best in the era. But I think it's really good. It's a really good era for companions in general. Like, I feel like for David Tennant's era, everyone seems to just think, Ten and Donna is the duo. People quite like Martha, and Rose and Ten is kind of not as good as 9. It's just a bit awkward. But I feel like 4 and Sarah is the main one. But Tom Baker's companions are very consistently good, I think. I think they all have pretty great chemistry. I think Adric, Tegan, and Nyssa are kind of weird in that they're not really. I think everyone does. It's okay. It's they're kind of not really 4th Doctor companions. They're kind of just setting the stage for the 5th Doctor. They're not really his. I think Adric kind of, because he's there for like a season, but yeah, I think in general it's kind of just Sarah, Leela, who she doesn't come to mind for favourite companions, but I think she has a nice dynamic with the 4th Doctor. K9 too is, he's not really a companion, but he's iconic. He's You know,
Yeah.
he's very well recognized. And both Romanas, I think, are pretty great as well, really.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
obviously, we had Romana 1 just for season 16, so she's kind of very closely associated with just, she's the one in the Key to Time season.
Yeah.
I think Romana 2 is great as well. Yeah, I think his companion's just pretty consistently great, really. But like I said, the last three are kind of just preparing for the Fifth Doctor. But
Yeah.
For Sarah is the main one, obviously.
Yeah, honestly, I think, Ford and Sarah are iconic, and I think they were kind of almost like a template, sort of, for 12 and Clara. I kind of see little shades of that in a little bit in 12 and Clara to some extent, and it's clear that the Golden Age kind of had an inspiration for Capaldi's run. But yes, Ford and Sarah are iconic, and as you said, he has the most consistent, solid run of companions, and Leela's great. And bit of a hot take, I think Mary Tam's Romana is slightly better than Lala Ward's.
Controversial.
No disrespect, Lala Ward is fantastic. She's really good, but
Yeah.
Mary Tam, I think, just has the slight edge. I think she kind of feels like a good equal for Tom's Doctor. They feel like they have a bit more of a real dynamism going on between them, and I think so summed it up perfectly. Mary Tam is kind of like the Elizabeth Hurley of the companions of Doctor Who, and I can definitely see it. And it's and K9. I don't love K9, but I do enjoy him. He's amusing, and it's so fun. And again, it's a shame that they dropped Harry after one season, basically, because he did offer a likability to the role. And honestly, after he left, I don't think we had such a good dynamic between the TARDIS trio again until probably Matt Smith's run, when he had Amy and Rory. And in a way, Harry's almost, to some extent, kind of a prototype Rory to some extent. So I kind of see some similarities between the two. So yeah, he has. Yeah, I can't find any faults with Andy Krauser. Like, when you look at some companions, that maybe you can see some faults with some Doctor companion dynamics, especially with the Sixth Doctor. But like with 4, you cannot single out any dynamic as bad. They're just all equally iconic.
Yeah, I agree with you fundamentally. I think, it's a very strong and consistent set of companions and relationships there. As much as the off-screen relationships weren't always great, I think they always came across well on screen. And obviously, 4 and Sarah, I think you have to say is the unbeatable combination, probably, of the classic series for me, certainly. So we, of course, want to come finally to our top 3 episodes of the Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor era. So Ryan, I'll come to you first. You can hit us with your top 3.
Oh, no! Honestly, choosing a top 3 is like having to pick between your own children. There were just so many ones, so many. But if I had to narrow it down, my top 3. Number 3, Pyramids of Mars. I just love Pyramids of Mars so much. Such an iconic story. Number 1 and number 2 were the most difficult ones. I think we all know probably what they're going to be, but if I had to choose, it would probably be number 2, Ark in Space, and number 1, Genesis of the Daleks. Again, number 1 and 2, it could go either way because they were my first ones, but I think right now that's kind of where I settle on with my number 1 and number 2. It could change later on, but that's how I currently think.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of those. Charlie, are you going to bring any other ones into the mix?
I'm going to bring 3 other stories into the mix.
Wow.
None of my top 3 is any of your top 3, Ryan, which is quite crazy to not have Genesis of the Daleks in my top 3. I'm aware it's 5th, which is still very high out of 42, obviously. And I still love it. I think it's such a good era. It's very hard to pick. My 3rd place is City of Death.
Good choice.
It's City of Death, isn't it? We've talked about City of Death. It's amazing.
Yeah.
2nd is a weird one, Androids of Tara.
Fun. I love Androids of Tara.
by
full
Androids of
story.
Tara. We haven't really talked about season 16 at all because they've just not released it on Blu-ray yet. I think it must come out soon, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to talk about it.
There's not many left, but I love season 16 a lot. It's like I think it's my third favorite Classic Who season. It's really good. And Androids of Tara is just really great. It's like a period piece, but with robots, and the Doctor has like a 10-minute long sword fight at the end of the story.
Yeah.
And there's like there's plotting, there's scheming, there's like doppelganger robots. It's just such a Doctor Who story. I love it. And first is the Seeds of Doom. It's my third favorite. My third favorite classic Doctor Who story. It's like fifth overall. It's just, you know what you were saying about the ultimate Doctor Who story, Ryan, and you were saying Ark in Space. For me, it's this. It's a 6-parter, but it doesn't drag because it's like the first 2 episodes are in Antarctica of all places, and then it just goes off back to the UK, and it's just amazing. It's like a James Bond film. You've got an evil billionaire villain who is brilliant. And you've got like an evil sidekick who kind of turns to the side of the heroes, and you've got this evil plant monster. You've got units showing up. It's all there, and obviously Tom Baker's Doctor gets weirdly violent, and it's obviously this story was kind of the root of Mary Whitehouse's outrage because the Doctor like basically kills people in this episode. I think it goes very, very far with the violence, kind of as much as it did really until like season 22. But there's just nothing to complain about here. It's just, for me, it's the ultimate Doctor Who story. But yeah, I mean, in fourth, so I said Genesis of the Daleks is obviously fifth, and fourth is the Pirate Planet.
Nice, another good choice.
Yep, another season 16.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I'm really excited. I'm holding off. I keep wanting to watch season 16, but I'm like holding off because I know that the Blu-ray is going to be coming soon. I'm like, come on, just release it, guys. I really want to watch this season again. I haven't watched it for like, I don't know, 5-6 years or something. But as you say, like, especially that middle 3, that Pirate Planet, Stones of Blood, Androids of Tara, it's just great. It's really, really good. So my top 3 as of right now, which kind of changes quite a lot. I don't feel like I have such a defined top 3 for the Tom Baker era. I have my I have honourable mentions. Stories like Warrior's Gate, as we mentioned earlier, is great. The Ark in Space, love it. I have a soft spot for Revenge of the Cybermen and The Invasion of Time as well. I think those are the 2 ones that people think are terrible that I quite like. And for number 3, I've gone for The Deadly Assassin because I'm a sucker for Gallifrey stories anyway. I feel like the stuff that's established, the whole Gallifrey lore and characters that are established in this story are great. That version of the Master, I love. It's a really cool, different idea with the Master in this story, kind of quite uniquely. Exploring all the stuff inside the Matrix is really, really cool and fun as well. And just all that stuff, and the Doctor trying to assassinate the Lord President and all of it. Like it's just really, really, it's a really cool idea. Seeing the first ever proper Gallifrey Doctor Who story, I think it's great. So I really enjoy that one. Then number 2, I've gone for The Talons of Weng Chiang. It's not been mentioned yet, surprisingly. But I thoroughly enjoy this story. Yes, I'm aware of some of the problems of this story today, shall we say, but I think not to kind of put that to one side, but acknowledging that that's there, but then saying also this is, I think, a brilliant story. I love the setting and the location. I love the characters they bring into the story with Jago and Lightfoot, and their dynamic is brilliant, and the sort of investigative Doctor that we see in this story and the villains. I think it's most 6-parters drag. As you said, Charlie, the Seeds of Doom works because it's almost a 2-parter and a 4-parter, and there's so much different stuff going on. Whereas the Talons of Weng Chiang is kind of 6 episodes of the same kind of setting and storyline, but actually, I never find that it drags. It's such a strong story. I really think it succeeds in that area. And then my number 1 is Genesis of the Daleks. I know it's the boring choice, but also I just think it's such a good story. It really is that good. The origins and the genesis of the Dalek story is really, really interesting. Davros is one of the ultimate villains of Doctor Who, really. I don't think there's many villains there that top Davros. So and Tom's performance is also incredible in that story. I think that's one of the key things as well. It probably is the most iconic moment of his era, is the "Do I have the right" scene in at the end of this story. I don't think there's another moment really with the Fourth Doctor that people remember more than that. And I think that's just a testament to how good the story is as well. So yeah, I think that's got to be number one for me. Yeah, but there's just so many to choose from, isn't there? I feel like I could put about 10 or 15 different stories in my top three, depending on my mood. Like, it's just such a consistently good era, even if it has its dips towards the end.
I think it's, as well, we've had, between the three of us, obviously 9 episodes picked, 8 different stories.
Yeah.
In our top threes, which is pretty crazy. It kind of shows how good the era is. I was kind of hoping you'd pick something, Elliot, that none of us had said, so we'd all have completely different stories. But 8 different stories in our 3 top threes it just goes to show how good it is, really. Because I think all of the stories you guys said are in my top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Is really good. I mean, up there, The Invasion of Time is also in my top 10. Controversially.
Good. Correct answer. Correct answer.
Yeah. And I know it's not good to be negative, but my least favourites are probably Underworld and Power of Kroll.
Yeah.
Those would be my bottom 2. But like some of the mentions like Androids of Tara, Pirate Planet, and Season 2, like, even though they're not in my top 3, they were very damn close. As I said, picking a favourite story from the Tom Baker era is like having to pick between your own children. It's so difficult. And again, it's such a good era that I'm just yearning for those last 2 Blu-ray sets to get released. Season 13 and 16. 13 is a fantastic season. It has my third favourite, Pyramids of Mars in there. And of course, Seeds of Doom, Brain and Morbius, which was also a contender in my top 3. Terror of the Zygons as well. And season 16, as those first 4 stories are fantastic. Perfect comfort viewing Doctor Who. It's just a shame the last 2 let it down. But again, I just love those first 4 stories. And Androids of Tara, funnily enough, my niece, my eldest niece, who's of course loves Doctor, and Tom Baker is her joint favourite Doctor also. Her other joint favourite is Sylvester McCoy. She loves both of them, and she calls Tom Baker's Doctor the Jelly Baby Doctor, which I think is a good. Android. I think the last classic one she watched was I think it was Androids of Tara. I think she was just interested in that one, and I think she was just definitely intrigued watching the screen unfold and just seeing like all these robots in this medieval setting and that sword fight at the end, and I just love just some of Tom Baker's what lines in that. I think there was that one line where he's like, "We'll pay you like 1,000," and he's like, "You can't buy me that kind of money. 500." I just love the price, and then that sword fight, and he just had the sword, and Tom's also just like, "I haven't bought my sword." It's just some of his lines. It's such a memorable story, and as I said, those first 4 and like from Reboss Operation to Android Time, it's just a perfect viewing experience for Doctor Who that I could just kick back and just soak it all in and just enjoy and vibe with it. And I just think it's so heartbreaking that the last 2 just aren't very good, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be talking a lot about that when we eventually cover season 16.
Definitely.
I'm feeling that's going to be the next Tom Baker Blu-ray set that's going to get released. I have a feeling it's going to be season 16.
I agree. And I feel like it's got to come fairly soon. Season 15, was a year ago now, so we'll have had 2 different ones since then, and there's only one other 80s release to come. So I feel like season 16 will either be the next one after season 7 or maybe the one after that, but I don't think we've hopefully got too long to wait for that one. Well, before we go, of course, Bill wasn't able to join us this evening, but he also wanted to share his thoughts on the Tom Baker Doctor, so let's listen to that now.
Hello everyone, sorry I couldn't be there for the main recording of the podcast. Unfortunately, I just had some stuff that cropped up last minute, which meant I couldn't take part with the others, but I still wanted to give my thoughts on 50 years of the Fourth Doctor. I can't believe it's been that long since he made his first appearance. So I've got a few questions here that I believe the others might have already talked about and given their thoughts on, but I'm just going to give you all my thoughts on them. So what's my first memory or story of the Fourth Doctor? So in terms of the very first memory, I'm not too sure. I think probably the first time I would have seen him probably would have been when I watched The Five Doctors, which I think was the first classic series story I ever saw. And I saw that on the old like special edition DVD that came out in late 90s, early 2000s, I think. And yeah, and then I don't know if it was because of that or being exposed to some of his like actual stories from his actual era like later on, but eventually like he became, I think, my favorite Doctor for quite a while actually. When I was growing up, like I loved the fact that like, you know, here was a Doctor who, like, I suppose from my kind of young child kind of like brain, like perspective, it could he could be quite silly in a way, but then like not in a way that was like over the top or whatever. Like there was something very just instantly so doctory about Tom Baker. Like the fact that, you know, he played the part for so long, and I think he's even said this himself in interviews and stuff since then, that, you know, when he was playing the Doctor, he wasn't really acting as such. He was more or less just playing Tom Baker, essentially, just playing himself. And, you know, it's just this larger than life kind of character. And yeah, there's just so much I think we take for granted nowadays with the kind of formula for every Doctor that I think the Fourth Doctor kind of introduced in a way, like that kind of, like, as I say, like he could be silly, he could be quite light-hearted, quite funny, but then he also had his dark moments, his more serious moments, his, you know, kind of more, like, I think of that moment in the Pirate Planet when he loses it with the pirate captain, for example, and, you know, you get this real kind of anger and frustration out of him, and this real kind of like moral outrage, I think, from him because of the fact that the captain is stealing all these planets and miniaturizing them and everything. So yeah, I just really like that about his Doctor, the fact that certainly with the new series Doctors, I feel like they take quite a lot of inspiration in terms of their personalities and their own takes on the Doctor from Tom Baker's. I feel like David Tennant, you know, replicated that light and dark aspect really well with the 10th and 14th Doctors. You know, Matt Smith did with 11, Peter Capaldi did with 12, etc. You know, it all seems to stem from Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor. Not to say that like the first three Doctors were like not heavily influential as well to later incarnations. I mean, they were, of course, but like Tom Baker especially, just the fact that, you know, I don't know, it's so obviously, I think we all know, hopefully you all know what I mean, but I think it's kind of one of those things that is really difficult to put into words, just how much of a big deal it was, that the fact that, you know, Tom Baker got the part and really made it his own, I think, because he was so different from John Pertwee, so different from Patrick Troughton, William Hartnell, but also still kind of honouring them a little bit. Like him and John Pertwee especially, 3 and 4 were very kind of big personalities as Doctors, and that I just feel like Tom Baker took it to a new level, and yeah, that's it's just great. I think that he's got so many different kind of sides to him that comes out during his 7-year long tenure. You know, you get the more kind of brooding, moody aspects in the Philip Hinchcliffe era, but there's still like bits of fooling around with Sarah Jane and, you know, kind of joking about and everything. And then you get into the Graham Williams era, and it becomes a lot more about his comedic timing and his, you know, banter with Leela, Romana, K9, etc. And then in season 18, he's much more of a kind of, I think because of the behind the scenes struggles that Tom Baker faced during that season, becomes much more of a kind of aloof character and much more kind of somber and toned down. Like he can still be, his usual jokey self, but it's to a much lesser extent. And yeah, it's one of the main reasons why I don't like season 18 as much is because of the fact that I feel like Tom Baker, in most of the stories anyway, most of the time he seemed to be kind of over the role, over just being there. But that's not necessarily his fault. Like, he had quite a few illnesses during that time. He had his relationship drama with Lola Ward, etc. Yeah, it's not his fault at all. And it's not to say he doesn't still turn in a good performance in quite a lot of those stories. Like, he still does. But yeah, it's still the fact that you can have those different kind of aspects of the same Doctor throughout this really long tenure. Like, I think that just speaks a lot to Tom Baker's kind of ability as an actor to, still essentially playing the same character, but showing different aspects and different sides of that character over those 7 years. I think that is just a real testament, I think, to how great of an actor he is. And yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that he is so many people's favourite Doctor. Like, he's not mine anymore as such, but I would still rate him very highly overall in terms of ranking all the Doctors. The Fourth Doctor's always been pretty highly regarded by me because, yeah, there's just so much to love about his era. Like, even with season 18, I don't love that season much, but there's still some aspects of it that I really like. And, there's just a lot to love with Tom Baker's Doctor, really. I mean, he's just iconic. He was the Doctor, for an entire generation of fans, and is continuing to be highly regarded even by subsequent generations of fans. It's very often a case of, most fans will either have him or David Tennant as their favourite Doctors, and that just speaks volumes to what Tom Baker did with the part and how he became so iconic with, his trademark, like, multicoloured long scarf, his jelly babies, his fedora hat, and just that deep kind of voice that is just, he could read the most boring thing out. He could read, like, the phone book out and still make it sound really good, really enjoyable. So yeah, I just think he's a great figure of Doctor Who's, like, overall history and such an important part of it, and really what made the show so iconic, so beloved during the 1970s. And yeah, I don't think, that started a bit with John Pertwee, but I feel like Tom Baker just kept it going and then exceeded that and brought it to even bigger heights, and I don't think that will be possible in quite the same way without him, essentially. So yeah, he's a very important part of Doctor Who's history. In terms of top 3, I'm going to do top 3 episodes or stories. I'm going to probably put number 1 being City of Death is probably, I'd say number 1 pick, because I just love that story. I love how just silly and ridiculous and witty and so Douglas Adams kind of humour it all is, and how I think that kind of style of humour really plays to Tom Baker's strengths as an actor. Like, you can tell he's just loving every single second with that script, and so is the rest of the cast, Lola Ward and Julian Glover and everyone. In terms of second top, I think it would have to be Genesis of the Daleks. Like, that has to be there somewhere, even if, it's a 6-parter. It does kind of suffer from that traditional 6-parter itis where, maybe it is a bit too long and a bit too drawn out for its own good in some places, but then it's just such an iconic story and such a really beloved story, and for really good reasons. Like, I think it's pretty much kind of what sets the benchmark for that Philip Hinchcliffe era. Not to say that, like, the Ark in Space didn't help that as well, like, it did, but I think Genesis especially set that tone for the rest of those 3 seasons, and that's a very beloved and well-regarded aspect, time and aspect of Doctor Who's history among its fans. A lot of fans love the Philip Hinchcliffe era, and rightly so. Like, I can see why. So I've kind of gone with like one each from both the Philip Hinchcliffe and Graham Williams eras so far. So I'm going to finish off with probably one from season 18. Now, as I say, it's not my favourite season of all time, but I do like some aspects of it. I'm going to say Keep of Traken, actually, for that one. Like, I think that's a pretty solid, good story. I'd say, at least in this moment, that is my top 3 Fourth Doctor TV stories. On a different day, I might have picked something like State of Decay or Pyramids of Mars or whatever, but today, that is what I would choose. So, I think that's pretty much everything covered, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Well, wasn't that great to hear Bill's thoughts on the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker? And it's been really fun just to look back and sort of reminisce on a lot of his great stories, his great moments, and celebrating 50 years of Tom Baker's Doctor. I feel like it's always that weird thing of celebrating, like, I feel like you often do things like this when someone dies, but actually, no, Tom Baker's still going strong. He's still even sometimes recording Big Finish stories and all this kind of thing. So I'm sure, we've got lots more to enjoy from Tom in the future and the Big Finish side of things. And I'm sure he'll appear on some random Blu-ray documentaries in the future as well, as much as we've got many, many stories from the past of his to be able to enjoy. But that is just about all we've got time for on this edition of the podcast. So remember to check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and of course on my YouTube channel, EMS Productions. But for now, from me, from Ryan, and from Charlie, it is goodbye.